Hi, Tom. So you are CTO of Wonderly. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do at Wonderly?
Wonderly is a personalized children's book publisher. We make books that are driven by our users' input to customize them to their children. It is quite a tech-heavy process. We also maintain our own e-commerce platform where we sell our books direct to consumer, and we have a back-end service that allows us to print in many different locations around the world. As CTO, my job is to oversee the strategic and technological and engineering challenges that the company has. Specifically make the right decisions about how we can enable the business to move forward in a cost-effective manner. Lately, I've been involved a lot in discussions around whether you should buy solutions or build solutions. As an engineer myself, I love to build. And I think, everyone who works in engineering gets into engineering because of the passion
Of building.
and of building, right? That's commanding machines to do as you will. It's great. It's a great feeling. I can totally relate to that. But we need to distill within engineering, within the discipline, we need to distill what it is that we need to build. Perfect example of that would be CMS, right? I think we use Prismic. That's why we're here. Would you want to build a CMS for your book publishing business? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Would you want to build an e-commerce platform to sell your books? Or should you focus your engineering efforts on what makes you unique, which is the book building platform? And it's not an obvious choice. I think, for a lot of people it is.
It's not. And the thing is, the way you say it is that you need to focus on what's important for your business, and then you have all these other needs that should you. So it gets to this famous question, popular question of should I use SaaS, something hosted, or should I build it myself? Should I use open source? I don't know. What are the guidelines for doing this kind of reasoning? If I'm a company, startup, or even a company, any kind of company, and I have this kind of decision of I need something, I need a tool. How should I do the reasoning?
Well, first of all, it really depends like where you are, like in their company life cycle. If you're just starting up and you have nothing, and it's just you and an engineer, and this engineer can build anything, I would still say that you should not build anything if you can avoid it. So if we take auth, for example, right? A lot of companies require auth. I mean, it's very, very basic. Users, authentication, authorization, scope management roles. Sure, you can build that, right? You could build that, or you can go with auth 0, and you can spend 4 months or 4 weeks, building it, and then maybe in the long term maintaining it, which is like this kind of hidden cost that no one talks about as your product progresses and as your business requirements advance. You need to add features, you need to maintain your features, you need to plug in security holes.
Maintaining, maintenance.
Maintain, right? It's a big thing, maintain. No one talks about that because when we're building, we're not thinking about, hey, what's going to happen in a year's time? What's going to happen when they deprecate this runtime that I'm on right now and I need to upgrade my runtime by, hey, all my dependencies now I need to upgrade all my dependencies and maybe some of them have breaking changes.
Also, yeah, dependencies.
Right? It's this thing. It's a complicated thing. Right now, even within build, you will still use a lot of components that someone else has built, and you will still integrate them into your software. And each one of this integration then comes with a price. Yes, you're not writing the code, but you're maintaining the API.
So the way I understand it is that you have either you build your own thing, and then you can also use open source for like making that build process much quicker, more productive. And then for commodity services that are not the focus of your business, then it's maybe worth considering a SaaS company that does it, that has a big team that is working on it, so that you don't focus, because it's not the focus of your business in that case.
Yeah, of course. And that extends to every corner of your business. CMS is a perfect example of what you can buy and not build. You should probably buy it. You would not want to build your own CMS because while it will probably start as having a few text fields and a few radio buttons, and it'll probably work for a while, as well as your business grows and requirements increase, and product would like to do a bit more things, and e-commerce would like to do a bit more things, marketing would like more things. You will have to focus on building your CMS instead of working on your core product. At that point, you might already have a lot of content in there because you've been busy, and migrating to a different platform, everything becomes a project. So a good decision would probably be to buy the best possible service that you can afford at that time, which between money and features. Try to do a good job in selecting one.
Right.
So,
but from the other side, if you can say that if I go for a SaaS, like you mentioned, for instance, for CMS, and there are a lot of examples. If you go for SaaS, then you might not get exactly what you need. There will be something missing. And how do you manage these cases where there's a SaaS service or a software, like a software as a service solution that does almost what you want, but there are things that you lack still. Open source, you can still integrate to it, you can improve it, but how would you do with a SaaS provider?
So I think not all integrations, right, and when we say or improvements, require you to actually write code within the context of the piece of software. And we have a real world example, which is if we have our own e-commerce system. It's built on a framework called Solidus, which is a fork of Spree for if anyone knows what I'm talking about. It's built based on Ruby on Rails, where we have added the personalization mechanics and the delivery of ops, the whole creating of the book and sending it to a print house to be printed and managing that whole life cycle into that piece of software. And that was wrong. It was wrong because now we have this big monolith that does a lot of things. And it makes it impossible to upgrade the underlying framework because of dependencies that have been introduced. So when you look at a SaaS product and say, how can I replicate this behavior using a Shopify or a BigCommerce, SaaS solution for e-commerce? You need to find, this is where engineering comes in. Engineer the way to have this as a service that has a clear API between that SaaS product, and then you can input and output the data that is required, and you create the logical bindings that are required to complete your service. You can say the same for CMS, right? So maybe
API can help also with that integration without even messing with the mechanics, with internal mechanics of something.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And messing with the mechanics of something can bring disasters, because then you customize a thing and you can't upgrade it anymore.
I would even say that, you're writing code, right? Writing code is a liability. Every line of code needs to be maintained, needs to have tests written for it. There's a human factor in there. Is it documented? Is it not documented? Will the next guy who comes within 3 years from now and look at this line of code even understand what it does and why it was written? Right? I mean, these are things that you don't think about them when you're doing it, but when you actually have to come back and maintain it, and I have pieces of code like this in the company that I just don't know what they're doing. I mean, I know what to do. I don't know how they do it. I don't know why they do it the way they do it. And, by default, this becomes tech debt. So all these, trying to get rid of them because we don't know what they're doing, and replace them either with solutions that have come up within SaaS or with a solution that is documented via an API, for instance, is a great example. An API which then has a suite of integration tests that are associated to it. If you've done a good job, you also have the docs that describe what it does.
So it seems to me like, that's where the role of architecture becomes important, because then you need to make an architecture that makes change possible and integration possible between different services.
Yes.
So basically that becomes the role of architecture.
Yeah.
Do you have examples of places where you had actually to implementing? It was a good decision, a good bet to actually go and do the coding, build the system?
So within our problem space of creating these personalized books and kind of just to understand how it works, you have this input parameters that would come from our customers, such as the name or the gender and the phototype of their children. In some cases, it could also be the address or traits or an open list of family members. We have to build a system that will then take the creative body of work that was done with these input parameters and create a book based on some kind of mechanics. And then within that, we also want to render a preview, which is rendered on our website at scale. And we also want to render a high resolution PDF that we can then send to be printed as a PDF. The first iteration of the product was actually very, very simple. We just had flat renders of all the possible permutations which we would assemble to a book. But as our products became more complex, a platform was built. And this platform was immensely complex, and it did everything really well apart from rendering. You actually saw that things like typography, type layout in general is incredibly complex. Fonts, text on path, effects, just compositing in general is a very big problem. 2 years ago, we made a bet and we said, we actually think the best way to render anything right now in the world is by using a web browser. You go on the internet, you have this amazing immersive experience, right? People do amazing things. HTML by itself is pretty good. On top of that, CSS makes it incredibly rich and expressive. Throw JavaScript into the mix and some canvas, and you can go with generative artwork. You can do a lot of interesting things. And we made a bet to go with the browser as a rendering mechanism. The technology at that point was actually not primed for what it is that we wanted to do. Server-side rendering of previews and books. And we hacked it together because we believed that the technology will catch up, because it was kind of obvious to us that we're not the only people looking to solve this problem. And the amount of hours that was invested in browsers by companies like Google and Apple and Microsoft, right, is unsurmountable. You can never invest this kind of funds and man-hour and smart into your own rendering stack. And this proved to be successful because we used Electron in the beginning, which is a desktop application. We kind of hacked it into existence and it worked well. But when Google announced Headless Chrome, and on top of that, a framework called Puppeteer to control it via Node.js, which is what we use, everything just became so much more simple, right? And we are very confident in this decision. We have a stack that can now render just about anything that our creatives can throw at it. We don't have to think about rendering anymore. Another thing that added to it is like the decision to go with Docker. So font rendering specifically is a very, very, very difficult problem. Mm-hmm. You know, the fonts, the way that they render on your Mac or on Linux or on Windows are completely different. Docker solves that by having you work on the same
environment.
Yeah, same environment across the systems. And that opens up a lot of opportunity in the terms of type. And type by itself, just for the type, it was worth it because it is so difficult.
Right. So it's mostly about like investing engineering efforts in the place where you think you can bring value into the market instead of like what surrounds your business as services.
Yeah, absolutely. Distill what it is that makes your company, your idea, your venture unique. If you cannot buy that, then build it or augment an existing solution, right?
Which is the headless
exactly
from that case.
Yeah,
right.
But don't build auth, don't build e-commerce, don't build a CMS, right? These things exist. There's many solutions out there. Choose the one that works for you, both from a feature and, financial perspective. I think it can be daunting for someone who's starting up. They look at this, this is $150 a month, and this is $500 a month, and this is this, and this is that. These are quality problems. If you're reaching these numbers, that means you're running at scale. So usually most of these companies will have an entry-level developer license or small startup license, which is actually a lot cheaper than hiring an engineer to build these things.
And maintaining and hosting.
I'm not even talking about maintenance, which is like probably 50% of the time you spend within, your engineering team. So instead of building things that matter, things that push you forward, you're still maintaining the things that are just to keep business as usual, which is, I think, not a very good use of resource.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Yotam, for being here. That was 20 minutes?
16.
Can you stop? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was all right.
or no?